thanks so much, first off, for taking the time to be here, Minister Barkat.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Absolutely. So, you're the Minister of Economy. Recently, within the last few days, there's been a new committee created to try to handle the cost of living, bring down prices in Israel. What is the goal overall of this committee? How do you see it moving forward, and how quickly do you think the Israeli consumer can see a difference made in their lives?
Well, I think it demonstrates the seriousness that our Prime Minister Netanyahu understands that we need to focus on cost of living. There are a few elements of cost of living, and we are going to put major effort together. From my perspective as Minister of Economy and Industry, we're looking at how to decrease the cost of food in Israel and the cost of commercial goods. See, Israel has a sort of an island economy. It's independent, it's far away. The regulations are not standard, not global standard. They're very rough and tough, so many products can't even get into Israel. And the ones that can, the monopolies and the cartels in Israel, could sell at a higher price because just because they can. And what we've started doing is actually opening up Israel for European standards. We enable today anybody that wants to bring European standard goods to bring that side by side to the Israeli regulations. So in essence, we're opening up the market. We're enabling people to buy cheap from Europe and bring them directly to Israel with minimal intervention so that the prices will decrease. And indeed, Carrefour, which is a European network, very strong commercial network, are able to sell a few thousands of their goods at between 25 to 50 to 40% cheaper. And the next steps is to enable everyone to do the same. That was sort of a pilot. We're also going to be fighting the monopolies and the cartels. Today, unfortunately, they have an opportunity to sell expensive in Israel, and they do. We are not going to enable that to happen. And what we're going to be going through is the process of separating between them. The big monopolies and cartels will not able to use their power in a way that they could push the rest of the chains in a dishonest way. So from my perspective, it is really opening up the market, making sure that anybody could bring goods cheap from the global marketplace. And there's no doubt in my mind that in the near future, you will see step by step prices going down of more and more goods. More and more people will import goods to Israel, and you will see a consistent decrease in the pricing.
So are these new ideas, or is it simply the will to actually implement them?
Well, it's actually quite tough to work with the regulators in Israel. I'm telling you, I come from the private sector, and then as mayor of Jerusalem for a decade, and you see that it takes its time. You have to convince them, show them the way, because people are used to doing what they've done yesterday. They do tomorrow what they did yesterday, and you have to show them different ways of how to work. And the European perspective is our goal. What's good in Europe is good for Israel. And slowly but gradually you see that we adopt more and more of the European way of doing business, the European standards, and slowly but gradually you see that big, huge 30 to 40% difference in price between Israel and Europe decrease in the goods that we bring from Europe. And unfortunately, you saw that the monopolies have increased the price of their goods, but slowly but gradually, the more goods we bring from Europe, you will see it influence the general price of living in Israel.
I want to stick to the economy for a moment, but a different economy, the Palestinian economy, which Israel has been charged with propping up, essentially. Where are the challenges right now in dealing with the Palestinian economy specifically?
That's a great question. First, let me give you some statistics and numbers. The average GDP per capita in Israel is $55,000 a person a year. The Arab Israelis are around about almost $40,000. The 120,000 Palestinians that cross the fence every day to work in Israel is over $16,000, close to $20,000. The ones that work in Area C under Israeli control in our industrial zones, that's 11,000. In areas A and B, it's 7,000, and in Gaza, it's less than $3,000 a person a year. The point is that the more the Palestinians cooperate with the Jewish state, the better off they are. And what we want to do is propose them better ways to cooperate with our economy in a smart way. For example, my plan calls for expanding industrial zones in Area C. Today, you have about 40,000 Palestinians and about almost 20,000 Israelis working in Area C together in the industrial zones. I want to scale that 10 times in the next 15 to 20 years. So in many ways, to enable more and more Palestinians to come to these industrial zones managed by Israelis, by Israeli citizen towns in Judea and Samaria, and enable them to triple their salary in many, many ways, because eventually, if it's good for them, it will be good for us. So strategically, the plan is to enable more Palestinians to work in Area C and cross the fence and go back home to sleep, get better wages. You have civil separation. You've got full Israeli security, but you have mutual economies. You want to have their economy linked to our economy, because together they do much, much better, and eventually so do we.
Quickly, we have about a minute left. You've been to the United States a number of times to speak on the Iranian issue, to members of Congress, to members of several administrations now. You once said that any missile fired on Israel by an Iranian proxy should result in an Israeli missile fired on Tehran. Do you still believe in that?
Yes, and I'll explain why. Iran is using their proxies with 250,000 rockets aimed at us. And it reminds me what eventually, at the time, what President Kennedy did in the Cuban Missile Crisis. He eventually said that a missile from Cuba will be answered by a missile to Moscow. And he made it very clear that we understand where the head of the snake is. And if, God forbid, we get a missile attack, significant missile attack from the proxies around Israel, Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in Gaza, you have Syrians, and you have long-range missiles from Iraq. Unfortunately, you have Judea and Samaria, and unfortunately, some of the Arab Israelis. They want to attack us on all fronts. They will not sleep good at night. The Iranians must understand that we understand their strategy, and we will not allow the people of Iran to sleep good at night if, God forbid, we're attacked. Hopefully, this will deter the Iranians from attacking, and if not, we must strike them with very strong force, and we can.
Minister of Economy and Industry, Nir Barkat, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much.